I would spend this morning. It's probably about a month after we gave you a tour of this area. And we made some progress, and I wanted to show you kind of works in progress right now with all the garden areas. And it's still July, month of July, it's the end of July, and the most noticeable difference is the ground. So if you'll see this is the crusher run that is laid down. We still have a short section right about here between the herb and the pollinator garden that still needs to be done. But this is such a difference because we were walking kind of on mud and muck for a while, and now to have like a solid base, this is going to be very nice, and it will help prevent some of the weeds that kind of push in on the edges of the garden beds. I mean, obviously there'll still be grass kind of surrounding the garden beds, but there's a lot less weed pressure when you introduce stone and gravel. As a reminder, some of the stones behind here are going to be laid down, and I think this project will start next month in August. And so hopefully by the time we do a late summer tour, then these will actually be laid down, fingers crossed. But you'll see that the shrubbery, or the shrub garden, has started to come in really nicely. There's a little bit of weed pressure. Some of the grass seeds kind of move in and whatnot. So I'm always kind of coming in here, just kind of ripping them out, like just things like this that move in. They're very superficial, but you could see they really do take hold. And I have to stay on top of it until this garden becomes more full, like the pollinator garden. We added some blueberries in here. We actually added more blueberries also to the orchard, but we added some more blueberries in here. Some of those small blueberries that only maybe grow 3 feet wide and 3 feet tall at the most. So it'll kind of go in with the shrubbery, but it won't overtake the shrubbery. Just have to walk around here. I think this plant got hit a bit because you could see it's kind of died back, but the others are still in full bloom. Oh, and I want to point this out because I pointed it out last time, but this is some of the sunflower seeds that are chipmunk berried. So you can see that this is already coming up. I didn't have the heart to take this out, and oftentimes our groundhogs will eat the tops off and the leaves of the sunflowers, and in fact, I had some of our Jerusalem artichokes planted in our raised beds along with the asparagus because they have a tendency to kind of push out and they're really hard to control. But lo and behold, I think the groundhog ate them down. They just have the stems and some of the jagged leaves. And so we may or may not have Jerusalem artichokes. Oh, look at this cool little spider. I don't know if you'll be able to pick it up. Look, he looks like a little seed. That's cool, cool placement, because I'm sure there's gonna be insects that wanna go and pollinate that disc. So you see, this is the section that is yet to be done. So this will be happening this Sunday, actually. So that will be nice. And whew, pollinator garden, every day, something different, something new blooming. And you could see that from last year to this year, the cone flowers are on fleek. They are just spot on. We have the species, the Pallida, the Purpurea, the Angustifolia, and I'm blanking on the one that is the yellow one over there, but we have that one as well as species. And then I actually have some cultivars as well. And this is an example of a cultivar. I don't have the name off the top of my head, but you can see that it has this kind of, it starts off with this like yellow red, and then it slowly fades into pink, which is totally on part with, I think, this whole bed. But it's interesting because in May, everything is so close to the ground. I said this before, everything's so close to the ground. It almost feels like a rock garden. And by the time you hit August, September, the garden is just full on. So there are some little things that I've added to the garden. Oh, you can see some of these sunflowers coming up. These are darling. And I think this is the phlox, and I did not project it to be this big, but it may not be phlox. I'm not sure what's coming up here. So we got some really beautiful spikes. And this pink lavender, what's funny about it is that it's having like another moment. Like it flowered, it stopped flowering, and now it's flowering again. So I don't know if we just hit the right kind of weather or if it's like, twice blooming or what it might be, but it is just really lovely. You might notice that these are the pineapple, I think they're called pineapple lilies, and these are bulbs that I had planted. I don't think that they are perennial. I think you'd have to lift them we're in zone 5-6, so I think you might have to lift them. Don't quote me on that. And then we have the Agastocki just coming up, which is great because our hummingbirds and also other pollinators absolutely love this plant. So it smells nice, hummingbird mint. It has a really nice sweet minty smell. Asclepias is already going to seed pod. This is our swamp milkweed. It doesn't push out in the same way that Asclepias syriaca does, or common milkweed, but I have noticed it pop up in different parts of my pollinator garden. So yeah, Coreopsis. So we have some more Coreopsis lanceolata that's coming up, and started to add a little bit more yellows throughout because, again, it's really nice to see the pops of yellows in with all the pinks and the reddish purples and purples. This one is new this year. This is Rattlesnake Master. I believe I only have one of these planted, and it just provides some really interesting structure in the garden. I think it's just very architectural, and I like some of those architectural pieces in with this kind of wild planting. So here's an example of some of the Echinacea that is a cultivar, and this one's a little bit past bloom. Shades of Rosé, I found out from the gentleman who actually hybridized or bred this plant. It's I was calling it Shades of Rose, but when you get it, they don't have that little, accent over the E. So it's Shades of Rosé. So that is something that I'd like to correct myself on. You could see some of the shrubby roses kind of down there, just woven throughout the different plants. And I don't know if I had this the last time. I think I may have, but we have this beautiful kind of sculptural piece of art. It's getting kind of eaten by all the plants, but like I said in the beginning, it really provides a lot of beauty. And I have to come in here and actually weed out some of the grass, but you'll see like this elfin thyme really fits to the stones quite nicely. It's really fun to play with and to feel. It's really cushy. Our Achillea is up. I think last time we were showing you the Achillea was just starting to bloom. And the Verbena bonariensis, surprisingly this year, came back. I had bought a couple plants to plant in the garden because I like to plant it every year. And it's hardy to zone 7, but because I think we had such a light winter, this came back up this year, which was great. We had a little hint of our tiger lilies. I'll remind you that we actually planted tiger lilies. I'm going to have to show you that they did come up with a photo, but they were really attacked by the lily leaf beetle, and they were like right here in the middle between this mallow and the hollyhocks. And you'll see that we have some damage from the hollyhocks. I actually think the lily leaf beetle also will eat hollyhocks, but really that damage is from the Japanese beetles. So the Japanese beetles are a bit more of a high pressure this year, and I actually come out every morning and I basically put them in with some alcohol and I just drop them into the alcohol. So, it's a little just to keep them down. I think they seem to like the hollyhocks and the phlox the most. This isn't coming up yet, not flowering yet, but this is Liatris microcephala. It's one of my favorite plants in the garden. Can't see how beautiful it is with the little purple flowers, but it's the same family as those candle spikes that are coming up there. Those are different species of Liatris. So that's one that I'll probably repeat through other gardens. This one, it's just so funny to see what you could see in between. This flower just fell out. Look at that. It almost looks like a tropical strelitzia or bird of paradise or something, or some type of weird orchid, right? It's it came off of this plant, so it was flowering yesterday, and it looks like it just stopped. So this is not native, but it's I believe it's called Roscoe. I'll have to get you the cultivar name, but it just adds a little bit of tropics to your gardens, and I absolutely love it. And then you see that I have two different Achilleas right here, one that's a little bit more pink, one's a bit more peachy. And this got cut open right here, so some of the plants were taken out. You'll remember that we had some of our, I said it was sneezeweed, but it was actually a coreopsis that was coming up. And Sonder cut through here, and there's a little white top that's right there. And so that's the ability for us to run electricity underground, so that if we want to actually power, we're using solar power right now for the bird watering area, but if we want to actually run electricity and have some more reliable power, then that will work for that. So we just gave ourselves the option. This is our pycnanthemum. You can see it's full on. I've had to kind of stake it up a little bit. Now, what's interesting is that they do have a smaller cultivar, and I think I would have maybe planted that right here in the garden. It actually only grows 18 inches tall. Pycnanthemum tenuifolium Campbell's Carpet, I believe is the cultivar name. I got some for the memorial garden back there, but when the sun hits, this is flooded with pollinators. And in fact, I've had so many wonderful new pollinator experiences in this garden and in the gardens around the front garden area. So basically I'm kind of giving you like an update on the front garden. Cut back the chamomile. It was starting to get a little bedraggled, so I cut that back to the ground. And then there was a swallowtail on here. Oh, there he is. He's moved. I don't know if you'll be able to see him. He's on the fennel. Look at how beautiful that guy is. He's getting fat. But this is their host plant. So I've seen a couple swallowtails on the fennel that we have planted. And you can see this is now taller than me, and I'm about 6 feet tall. So this is getting quite tall. I love it though, because as you walk through, you feel like you're being enclosed and encased by plants on all sizes, all sides. And I've noticed that the bronze fennel has started to drop its seeds everywhere. I might actually just, this is a great example of like if I had folks coming here and I could just like take these and plant these up and sell them because plants are just so giving, and there's too many in this bed already. So I'd rather have that problem where there's just too much of something and I could actually take it out and maybe give it away or sell it. So here's our feverfew and one of our quinces. This chamomile is getting to the end stage of its life. We might have to cut that back or use it. And then this is our shade garden. You can see that it actually bounced back from some of that late freeze that we had. And gosh, these geraniums look great. They're past flower. And so I could maybe cut off the tops and keep them really close to the ground. If I wanted to keep a bit more of a kempt look to the garden, then I would probably do that. The Cimicifuga or the Actia in the back is starting to come up with a long flower spike. So that will have a really beautiful, sweet smelling, like vanilla and jasmine smelling flower spike. We have some of our alpine strawberries, quite a bit in this garden. I probably have somewhere between 60 and 70 different types of species, many of them fruiting because the animals do pass through here. And I have this interest and desire to actually serve the animals, serve the birds, serve the bugs, and they really serve you back. A few more things that I'll show you in this garden. This is our Eupatorium maculatum. This is baby Joe. So this is a sweet Joe pie weed that basically grows a little lower, but you can already see that it's still quite a beast. And we have the species growing natively in our meadow. I'll show you a meadow update in a future video, but this is looking really nice. And then this is a new kind of architectural arrangement that I put in the garden, which I'm really excited about. I didn't see what it looked like early in the year, but when the garden's a little bit more low growing, but I think it's really nice because you come through and you see all these wild plants and then you see something that is sculptural or architectural. So I really like that. I think it's very tasteful for this garden. Over here, I'm excited that, we'll have to shape this up. But if you recall, I did a video on 15 fruiting ground covers, and I was planting a lot in here. Most of these are fruiting ground covers, with the exception of some of these taller herbaceous perennials. But these are, look at how they're starting to spread out. I actually showed this to Ted from Coldwater Pond Nursery, where I actually got these plants from. This is Prunus pumila variation depressa. And he said, oh man, they look so healthy in this garden. And they really do. They're really thriving in this garden. And these will kind of come out and snake out onto the path. I'll have to clip them back if I want to keep them, away from the path. But we do have quite a bit of walking space here, so could let some go wild. I just saw one of the berries. So this is, I think this is from the Prunus pumila. Yeah, look at that. That's a little cherry right there. And I was thinking, oh, this could also be from the aronia, because we have some aronia right here that grow really low to the ground, like a low scape mound and ground hug. We have Gaultheria procumbens, we have Cornus canadensis in there. All of these are ground covers that have fruits. We even have this, which is cranberries. So this whole garden filled out really nicely. And we kind of were working on this garden and this garden, and now we've determined, mind the look of our decrepit deck, but we decided that we were going to put maybe 2 wide steps coming out, because we're always jumping off of this. That's why I put this here, just to kind of imagine what it would be like if I had a step down. We're going to do 2 wide steps, and there will be steps but also planters. So they'll have like plants off to the side, probably something low growing like sedums or something of that nature, and then a step down. So we were thinking of actually extending the deck, but we really like sitting on the deck. I don't think we need another deck off of a deck. And we really liked the modern look of like a planter built into a step. So I think we'll actually get that done this year as well. Over here, we kind of carry on with some of the fruits. So this is one of our native viburnums. You'll see that it's actually going to fruit now, and we have some of those low-growing aronias. This is a one of those Prunus pumila variation depressas that is not as leafy, and it's because I actually just transplanted this from the orchard. It was really getting eaten quite a lot in the orchard, so I actually moved this here because I wanted some symmetry on the sides, but not too much symmetry. And then here is going to be, I'm going to leave this open because we might actually put another little bird bath here and trickle up some water and maybe bury a vessel underneath. We're deciding on that. Now here we curved this a bit more. So we got some samples of this Corten steel edging just to try it out to see if we like it. And we like it. So we might actually carry this through some of the other gardens just to really give it shape and to kind of prevent the grass from moving in. That's kind of my biggest challenge, is the grass on the edges coming in. So we have a lot of surface area with our beds, especially in the front garden. So we have to figure out, like, well, how do we reduce our need to maintain those gardens? Things like the shade garden, I barely have to maintain it because it's just so planted so thickly that at the end of the day, I might only have to take out plants. But I ended up using some of the pine bark and some really beautiful stones to kind of carry through. I relayed these because I never really put them in properly. I wouldn't say that I put them in totally properly now, but I did add some crusher run, and I just kind of did a more informal path with the lavender and the nepeta and the balloon flowers. And you already see the bumblebees starting to come here, but when the sun is at the zenith, my goodness, so many pollinators. And again, I had an experience with a new pollinator. I saw a snowberry hawk moth, which is like, normally I see a hummingbird moth, which is, they look like moths that look like hummingbirds. And it was much smaller. It had black around its eyes, and it had a much like a yellower, greener body. And that was cool. There was 2 of them actually flying around here, so that's really lovely. This may not be the final chair here. I'm still debating on what kind of chair, but I love this seat. This is an amazing seat. I could be with all the pollinators, could drink some tea. I could see the span of the garden. I could see the birds over here. I could hear the hummingbird behind me. It is absolute bliss. It's my total bliss. So I really like it here a lot. It's quite pleasant. All right, moving on in the front garden area. This is an example of when we sat down in the winter and we kind of put together a list of things that we wanted to do. And this did not make the list at all, but I just actually shaved this back right here because I am gonna be doing some more plantings. But we thought, wouldn't it be wonderful, because this area is usually pretty wet. What if we dig a relatively superficial frog and toad pond right here? It has to be somewhat superficial because it is close to this electrical box. So we'd probably dig where the electrical is not, at least the deeper parts. And I had this tree planted here. It's a little grown up and weedy, but I'm gonna have to dig this up and put it elsewhere because this is kind of like right next to where the low area is gonna be. And I left this because there's quite a few things that moved into the low mow lawn, and this is some of our black-eyed Susans. I didn't actually plant that, so it's always surprising to see what actually grows in here. You could see some of the daisies have moved in as well. We had some coreopsis that was blooming earlier, right there. You could see the coreopsis right here. This is about as high as it gets. And then this is the Gaillardia, the blanket flower. Then we have some of our non-natives that have moved in too. This is our yellow sweet clover and our Daucus carota. So it becomes a full-on meadow if you don't kind of tame it back. Other surprises is this beautiful foxtail barley, which is also native. And the seed heads are just absolutely phenomenal, especially when the light hits it from the back. It's just gorgeous. So I found several clumps of that in here, which was a surprise. I don't know. I've never seen it on the land, so it might have been actually in with the seed mix. I'm not sure. This one was new to me. It's like an umbelliferous flower. I think this is like Tortillus japonicus maybe. It's like a carrot, but it grows low. It's not native here. White sweet clover, not native. Chicory is. And then this is mostly native grass in here. Probably the red fescue you could see coming up, which is this kind of flower. And then you may not be able to pick this up on camera, but telling your grasses apart is not necessarily my forte, but this one is Eragrostis spectabilis. And look at that seed head, so gauzy and beautiful. It kind of reminds me of the Muhlenbergia capillaris, which is I've planted in several gardens, and this is just so beautiful. So this is about as high as it goes. And the flower heads are usually what is the highest in these gardens. So we're still kind of working out this area and what we're gonna mow when, all that type of stuff. But I had to cut this back because I will be doing some more planting in here, and I wanted to see the shape of the frog pond that we're eventually, hopefully, going to be putting in there, and that will be coming out in like September. So a lot of work has been done and a lot of work still to do, but this is the update on the front garden area. There's still a little more that I could show you, but we'll wait until the summer tour.